Hello everyone, and thank you for joining our PointCentral Administration website series. First, we'll get started with our housekeeping and legal disclaimer. I'll leave this up for a minute and let you read through it. Next, if you have any questions related to this webinar, you can use the chat feature in the GoToWebinar, and one of the consultants we have on the call with us will answer you. Any other questions can be answered with our dedicated customer service at calixdcs@calixsoftware.com. I'll be your presenter today. My name is Derek Young. I'm a professional consultant and trainer at Calix. On today's agenda, we'll be covering creating data folders within the PointCentral admin website, enabling point auto file naming for your loan files, assigning user or user groups to data folders, granting permission and access rights to your users, and lastly, editing local data folder access. So starting with data folders inside the PointCentral admin website, with your user groups, you can have different access rights to different groups for different folders. It's really easy to customize, and PointCentral has the ability with different data folders to give different access rights for different users for each of your different data folders that you have made inside of the PointCentral admin website. You must assign access rights to your users or groups to ensure that the data folder is accessible to your users. The first thing I want to do is to select the data folder option in the navigation panel. And then I'm going to select the option for list data folders. I wanted to show you the list data folders section so I can show you what I have here. So these are all of the data folders that I have in my PointCentral admin website. As you can see, we have an order section with numbers that go up and down the screen, followed by up and down orange arrows. If you want to reorganize or put a folder higher or lower on the list, you would click on the arrow and it would then move the data folder up and down on your list. Some examples of data folders that are helpful for a lot of our companies would be a leads or a starting active leads data folder. This is where all of your files would start. So you could start that loan in there and then move that loan to the processing data folder once the loan becomes an active application or once you have sent it over to your lender. This again is just a way to help organize and create a workflow for your company. You can also see an underwriting data folder. In this data folder, you may only want to have underwriters having access to edit in the underwriting data folder, whereas your underwriters and your processors can be set to have read-only access to your loan originator data folders. So this would keep that folder safe from someone other than the underwriter making changes. You can also have a closed and funded or a canceled and denied to help organize when files are finished. So now I'm going to go ahead and click on my processing data folder, which is the third one on the list. I'm going to click on edit. This is going to show us which user groups have access, and we'll go into looking at access rights shortly. On this screen, up at the top, you'll notice the data folder name and the order number. This is another way you can switch the order in which your data folders will appear in the data folder drop down inside of Point. You can update the number and click the update button below this section, and that will rearrange the order of your data folders as well. Below that, we have an auto file naming section. This allows you to have the name of the file saved with a numerical value. This will be based on the date that the loan was created, and it also has the ability for you to add a prefix. You can select any number from these drop downs that you would like to appear in your loan number. I'm going to use a 4-digit year, and I'm going to use a 2-digit month, as well as 2 digits for the day. And for the counter, I'm also going to use 2 digits. This means that I can make 99 brand new loans each day in this data folder. After you make your selections, you can go ahead and click the update button at the bottom of the screen, and then we're going to scroll down below and look at these access rights. There are 2 ways that you can add access rights to your data folder. The top is the recommended way, which is by adding your user groups. These are the groups that we created in our last PointCentral admin website webinar. So this will speed up the process of adding access rights to your users. So I'll go ahead and click on Add Group Access Rights. One thing to note while you're inside of the data folder, you can always look at the top of the screen and it will remind you which data folder you're in. So we can see here that this is our processing data folder up here at the top. This will allow you to pick the user group from the option at the top. So I'll go ahead and select the loan originator user group. All right, and moving down to our access rights section. The access rights are broken up into different sections. So we're going to walk through those And the first section here is the loan view section. This is if you want your LOs to see all of the files in the data folder, or do you only want them to see files that have their name on it? For my example, I'm going to only have them look at the files with their name on them. The next section is other users' loans, which is right below. This gives you the ability to add any of your users to the list for all of the LOs to see. So if you did not want to do that, you can select the users and click add, and now all of your LOs would be able to see this user's loan files in their pipeline. The next section is loan access. This allows the user to edit and make changes to their loan, or it can be set to read-only access where the user cannot make any edits or changes to their loan file. The next section is the conversation log. The conversation log allows your users to add notes, edit notes, or delete notes in the system. The majority of the time, you're only going to want to give access to add notes, but it is up to your company as far as how much access you give to your users. Note, the unchecked buttons in this section will be grayed out inside of Point, so your user will not be able to perform those functions. And the next section below that is the document storage. This is the document management inside of Point. This is where documents get uploaded or saved, like the credit report or the Fannie Mae results after it's run. You have the ability to give access to adding documents and editing documents. That's if they need to rename or rearrange documents. Delete will allow them to delete the whole document package. You can also email some documents out, print documents, and save documents as one PDF and export them out of Point. The majority of loan originators would have all of these minus the delete documents checked. But as a company, you can choose what access rights the user has under their section. So our next section is the operations section, which is under the loan management header. These are the abilities that the LO will have inside of the data folder. Do you want them to be able to copy the loan? This will duplicate it completely with documents and information included. Do you want them to move the loan to another data folder? Do you want them to be able to delete loans or email the loan to someone else? You can also give them the ability to import or export 3.4 and 3.2 MISMO files into the software. In this area, the majority of the time, the user will not have access to delete, but again, it is up to your company what user rights you will assign to your users. We have a checkbox below for allowing offline file creation. This gives the ability for a user to still create a file if they are not connected to an internet source. When they do connect back to the internet source, then Point will ask them if they want to import that file. And right below that, we have the utilities menu section. Under the utilities menu, we have three options here. The first one is company defaults. This is going to be located inside of your Point system. This is where you have added your company name, company MLS, and any state licenses you might have. You can give no access, so this area will be grayed out inside of Point, and your users won't be able to access that area. Or you can give edit access, and this means your users will be able to make changes on that screen. The next option is drop-down list. For your drop-down list, this is where you have added in users' names. So for your loan originators, their names, their MLS license and email, as well as processors' names and underwriters' names. These are options that show up in the drop-down menu inside of Point. One of the things to note, the majority of the time, you do not want to have your LOs having access to make any changes to those items. So we would recommend leaving those set to no access. And lastly, the audit trail. This allows a user to see what has changed inside of a file. It doesn't allow you to make any other changes. It shows you what has changed. So this is either an all or nothing. They can either have access or they can have no access, meaning that they won't be able to see any of that information. The next three options are for the screen security under the tracking section. Under the screen security, there are now three options. We still have the no access, so that area will be grayed out and your users would not be able to get into that screen. We have a read-only access right, meaning they will be able to get to that screen, but won't be able to edit and make any changes to the file. Then we have the edit access, meaning they're able to make changes in these sections in that file. For your registration and lock, this screen provides an area that you can put in the lock information from a lender or secondary marketing department. For the trust account, this area allows you to record financial information such as payments, showing those coming in and out of your system. And for the loan profit and loss, this can help you calculate the profits and losses on a loan. There's a section for if it was originated by a bank or if it was brokered. And then you can enter in payments to the LO or processor to show the final revenue from that loan. So scrolling down to the last section for banker, these are all the screens that are found under the banker heading inside of a point file. So you will go through and look to see if an LO would need access to that area inside this data folder. Then you would go through and mark no access, read only, or edit. The first access right for underwriting, this is used to track the underwriting status of the file. In this screen, the underwriter can select the underwriting decisions of the loan and create their approval or suspension notice. Below that, for closing documents, these screens are used by the closer or the funder to enter in the information that's relevant to the lenders when they're reordering their closing documents through third parties. Below that, for shipping, the shipping screen is used to record closed loan data and keep track of status of the shipping of that loan to an investor. Below that, for secondary marketing, this screen is used to register and lock loans. You can record the locked data for loans that are going to be funded or sold over to investors. And this screen is where the MERS number is automatically generated if the auto min generate is enabled inside of Point. Below that, we have the fees and impounds. This allows you to document the final fees or impounds for the closing of the loan. Below that, for conditions, this screen is where the underwriter can add conditions to the loan and clear as well as they receive them. Below that, for warehouse and purchase advice, this screen lets you track the funding of the loan and tracks the investor purchase advice. This screen tracks the warehouse cost of funded loans between the warehouse advance date and the warehouse repayment date. Beneath that, for recording, this screen is used to document the loan information used to record the transaction of the loan with the county. And then we have our trailing documents. This is a screen that the shippers could use to record and track the documents required by the investor after a loan is closed. Once you're done, you'll click the Add Group Access Rights button to make sure that your selections have been saved. You can see up at the top where it tells you the access rights have been added to your user group. The other way to add access rights to a data folder is if we go back to our data folders option in the navigation panel and select the option for List Data Folders. I'm going to go ahead and click Edit on the processing data folder that we've been working in. And if I scroll down to the bottom section here, you can see we have a section for group access rights, but below that we also have user access rights. So you can add group access rights from the screen as well as individual user access rights. So you would use this section for individual user access rights if you wanted to give a user a little more access than what they may have in their user group. So an example of this might be that you have an LO manager who needs to see all loans besides just their own. You can grant them user individual data folder access rights so they'll be able to see all those loans, and that access will not affect the actual LO user group itself. If we scroll down just a little bit further, you'll see our copy settings section. We've got two copy buttons. The top one, you can see it says it will copy information such as company defaults and your drop-down list. So if you got your company address, company names, or LOs, processors, and underwriters information, that's what will be copied if you click the top option. The bottom one is the access rights we just set up in the other data folder. So if I want to have this data folder have the exact same access rights as the previous folder, I can come down to this section and select the data folder that I want to copy, click copy, you'll click yes, and at the top of the screen, the system will let you know that the access rights will be copied from the selected data folder. And for the last item, we're going to go back up to our navigation panel and click on the data folders option again. And this time we're going to click on the Edit Local Data Folder Access. This access will allow a user or a group of users to have access to their local data folders. These local folders are outside the control of the PointCentral server, and any changes made to these files in these local data folders are not recorded by the PointCentral audit trail. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact our dedicated customer service at calixdcs@calixsoftware.com.